Alrighty, we are back. And as you can see, we're taking a look at a free paint rack. Yes, you can get a free paint rack. The Artecho 8-inch Lazy Susan rotating 60 milliliter bottle tube paint rack. Yeah, save space, build up, not out. And yeah, that's what we ended up doing for the last couple of days now. We actually finished up printing it out, and we're going to show you there on the desk what it looks like and how it turned out. George is back again. Hey George, how you doing? We did our model and printed that model out, and I just want to kind of go over that along with a little bit of a salted, ooh, look at that. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, that is a salted sweet caramel latte. Ooh, that hits the spot. Man, that is good. So anyway, I've been working on a paint rack for the Artecho paints because they're basically like a 60 milliliter bottle. Some of them are kind of like a bottle tube-ish type of thing. We'll take a look when we get over there. But I'll just kind of rehash on what's going on and how you can get this free model, but a little bit of background and show you how I made this in Tinkercad. So, hey, we got Terry here. Terry, good to see you. Yeah, glad to be aboard. Let's see. So, yeah, we're talking about the rotating paint rack that we're making. That's going to take a purchase of a Lazy Susan off of Amazon. I'll show you where we can get that. But let's just jump right into this. And here we are in Tinkercad. And in Tinkercad, let's make this a little bit bigger. Basically what I ended up doing is kind of this right here. So I made like a disc and then I put these pieces on there. And it printed out pretty good. We did the proof of concept one and it printed out. George ends up and he says, little Earl Grey for him, a little under the weather. Oh no. Hopefully you get better. It's a little bit cooler here. Matter of fact, it's going to get pretty cold. And we're heading up to the mountains, so we're going to make sure that, yeah, we've got lots of nice beverage. But this is kind of what we ended up thinking here, is make this rotating paint rack. And I got this idea of looking for paint racks. And of course, nobody has a Artecho 60 milliliter bottle tube paint rack thing that would kind of save a space we would build up and not out. So I decided, well, I know a little bit about Tinkercad, so we'll end up doing that. So we came up with that, and then George will appreciate this, he suggested doing some paintbrush holders on here. So we've got 10 paintbrush holders on there, and we just finished printing this out. Actually, it finished about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I got up, and it's 7 o'clock now. So I wanted to go over this and show you what that came out and looked like. So we've got that there. And then what we end up having is these things here. Those will fit into the center. And then what will happen if we take this, and it's an 8-inch round, you get 10 paints per layer. And you can also have 10 brushes per layer. So what we're going to end up doing here is you could do something like this, and basically it would go like that. And then, you know, you could rotate that around and whatever configuration that you wanted, and we could do something like that. The other thing we could end up doing is, let's say if we want to do another stack, and we could do that. And then let's say you've got your 20 brushes are good to go. And then what we could end up doing here is, since we had all our brushes done, we could do something like that. And so we could build up. And what we're going to find out is if this can rotate. And yeah, this will be an interesting little thing. This is version 1. Matter of fact, we're gonna call this version 1 because I already have version 1 because I've already got some ideas and improvements. Some of those things are going to include like these little paint rack things. They're going to be angled up a little bit higher than 28 degrees, so we'll do that. And then on the top here, what we'll need for this very top piece, because this will actually be about like that, and so we'll have like a top piece that you can put on here and glue on, and so that way that will be a part of version 2. So we've got those things, and this is basically kind of what it looks like. Is there's kind of a little mock-up of the paint tube. It comes in like a tube, and then we also have 60 milliliter bottles, so those fit in there. We know that as well. So that's basically what we ended up doing. I started doing a 10-inch Lazy Susan one, but that's a lot of real estate, and it holds 14. And I wanted something a little bit smaller to fit onto the table that I got over there. And 10 inches, that's some space. And actually it comes out to almost, it's like 10 and a quarter. So that's a lot of real estate, and then to go up. But if we're looking at 8 inches, it's something a little bit more manageable. And if I had a bigger desk, I would probably go for the bigger one. But I figure everybody's trying to maximize space on whatever painting surface that they have. So I figured, you know what, I'll go for the 8-inch. And then with that, this is going to be used in conjunction with the Lazy Susan. So for all you youngins out there that don't know what a Lazy Susan is, it's not your cousin or sister-in-law or... I said lazy, not crazy. Lazy Susan is a little round platform that has some bearings in it that you can rotate it around. And so we're going to take a look. And you can actually find this on Amazon. And there it is, multi-use rotating swivel stand Lazy Susan with steel ball bearings. And you could just set something on there and it rotates around. As you can see, it has some bearings on there. Yeah, it works out pretty good. So you can turn stuff around. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, they've got 8, 10, and 12 inch, so I'm doing the 8-inch one. And with that, I do have an 8-inch one, but it's kind of like cruded up with paint because I use it in my paint booth. But I've got one of those, and so we'll take a look at that. This printed out pretty well. It took about 6.5 hours, something like that. And if we take a look, matter of fact, we could look at that. Here is the model on Creality Print. And so there it is, the base unit with the paintbrush holders there. And I think, like I said, what I'm probably going to end up doing is taking those and angling those up a little bit more because it kind of looks like a Christmas tree, kind of spreads out depending on your paintbrushes. But we've got that model there, and then we have the regular one there. And then, of course, we have the cylinder pieces. So those we know that those fit together. Now the question is what we're going to end up doing, and does it finally come together as all those pieces? This is printed out at a 0.2 millimeter layer height, which is pretty good. Put the seam position, as we can see down here, at random, because otherwise it would, not be random and it would look kind of funky. So all those little white dots, those are the seams. If we put it to aligned and then we slice the plate, then what ends up happening with that is it'll line those seams and it looks kind of funky. You can see, yeah, those white lines there, and that just looks kind of funky. So that's why I set that to random. And I wonder what assemble does. I haven't looked at all these seam positions, so this should be an interesting little rabbit hole that we're going to go down. So as we're waiting for this, you can press the like button, sip your Earl Grey, and I don't see much difference with that. Let's try back, and we'll see where the back is on these. I'm not sure. And yeah, I don't think I'd like that. because that would be in full view. So, and aligned. What is aligned? But this is a fun little project. I actually kind of enjoyed this, and yeah, I'm not really digging that either. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, going back to random, that would be my preferred. Of course, you can set it to whatever you want. As far as infill and things like that, what we ended up doing is I set it at a sparse infill density of 5% of what we can see there. It's a little bit thin, and we got 2 walls on this. We're using gyroid, which provides some good strength. You could also use adaptive cubic. But I think, honestly, this would be the minimal settings that I would use. If you're really, really trying to save filament, again, it's probably not that big of a deal. But I would probably go for 7 or probably 10% would be good. But I'm kind of happy with what this has. I don't think it's going to fall apart or break because of the weight of the paints and stuff like that. But I do think that probably 7% or 10%, 7% would probably be good, 10%, 7 or 10%. So that's what we end up getting there. And if we look over here to the right, it was 8 hours for this one that has the paintbrush stands. It's 8 hours and 10 minutes. And let's see, if we go over to this one, I think this one ended up, that ends up being 6 hours and 35 minutes. And it's about $4.12 for this plate right here. It's like $4.68 for the other plate. So it's pretty inexpensive. So yeah, it turned out pretty good. George says, my cousin always used little paper Dixie cups for thinner. Ah, that's a good idea. I remember those little tiny cups. I would actually see them in my grandmother's, in her house. It had the little tiny Dixie cup dispenser thing. And yeah, it was just kind of you brush your teeth and get your cup and do all that. It was prim and proper, and along with the soap on the back of the toilet that no one could ever use. So yeah, but it was good. It was good. And then I actually had my aunt, her husband did a lot of painting, and they weren't the little Dixie cups. They were kind of a little bit bigger, but he would do watercolors and drawings and things like that. And yeah, at the time when I was young, I was like, that's kind of old man stuff. And now what am I doing? I'm painting miniatures and making paint racks, and so I gotta eat crow here. Things that I thought I would never do, I end up doing. So with that being said, we're going to jump over to the table over there. And so what we'll end up doing is we'll just go ahead and we're going to, again, this will give you time to like and subscribe to the channel while I move the microphone over as we get that view there. And the other cool thing, as you can see, is we ended up getting over 300,000 views so far. Now my channel's been around for a while, but it's been picking up steam, I guess you could say. So that's kind of good. So that deserves a like. So anyway, here is the first one, and here's where I end up seeing that you can see there, those seams and stuff just ended up just looking kind of gnarly. But the first one printed out, and like I said, we had the paint is able to fit in there, and we're good to go on that. And if we take a look at the new one that printed out, and it's got the seams and everything, I don't know, it looks kind of different, but hey, it works. But yeah, it's kind of a thin. You can see see how you can see through that. So you might want to do a couple more walls, and it'll bend a little bit. But this is pretty sturdy, and I think we'll be good to go. Here is the Lazy Susan that we end up having that's covered with paint. But this is an 8-inch Lazy Susan, so the whole idea was to go ahead and put that down. You would have this here, and then we put in a centerpiece, and then we end up putting this piece on there. And what we found out is that this would spin. Of course, we could spin the whole thing. And then the idea was, if we get this other piece and we put that on there, we just glue in the center and don't glue this one. This can rotate around. So, you know, whether we move the whole thing around on the Lazy Susan or, you know, as I'm putting pressure down here, these will individually move. And so the measurement on these came out perfect for, at least for my printer. I think this is like, the measurement on this is like 60 or 50 or whatever it is, as far as the hole. And then this cylinder is like 49.99. So I did like a 0.1, a little bit smaller. And so that cylinder is able to, you know, spin freely on here. So the whole idea is to set this down like that, and then you're having this little rotating thing, and then of course you could do another one. What I do need to make is like on the very top one, because I need to have like a cap. So that's going to be on the version 2. So that way, however high you build this, and then you could glue like some little cap, basically. Yeah, that's what I'll end up doing. I'll just do a cap. We'll cut this off, and boom, we'll be good to go. And so that way you can put glue in the center on that, and then, you know, you would still be able to rotate that around. So yeah, not bad, not bad. That's a little tight. I think we'd need to kind of bump that in a little bit, make that a little bit longer. So I need to do a little bit of adjusting. So yeah, we'll kind of do the same thing with like this tapered edge on there. And I don't know, any ideas on this? Maybe I could have some holes for paintbrush holder up here, maybe around in this. We could do that as well. So if we take a look at this, we can end up, because this isn't glued, but we can see that this spins around. And then if we put the paints on the bottom, we can see that those clear, even on that they're put in different positions. But this gives you a good view of the paint itself, and you have easy access to it. Everything clears like we see on the bottom here, so you're not going to have any problems. So yeah, it turned out really good. And then, see what I mean by the, I'm going to have a cap on here to do that. But let's take a look at our brush holders. And we got a variety of brush holders here. And maybe have to glue that onto the Lazy Susan. So, see what I mean? How it's kind of like a Christmas tree type thing here. And how it kind of like takes up more space. So you could imagine if doing a 10-inch one, this would be out even more. So I think in the next version, the paintbrush holders are going to be more angled up more, so that you could kind of see like that. And then that way, so it's not as spread out. So, I mean, this could be, it's good as it is, but I mean, you're taking up more space and real estate. So I think in the version 2, like I said, what we'll end up doing is making that, making these paintbrush holders stick up a little bit more at a greater angle. So yeah, there it is. It actually works. So we got a couple things to do on the version 2. And the Lazy Susan, it seems to work out pretty good. You'd probably have to glue that down. Maybe use some 3M tape. And that would be good to go. So I am pretty happy with this. This turned out pretty nice. Definitely have to glue it down to the Lazy Susan. But other than that, it turned out well. Good, 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 good. So if this was the top piece, should I put holes into this to have paintbrush holders in this? because with that I could probably do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, maybe 12. I could stack 12 brushes inside of this thing, and then they would be straight up, and that would work. I could try to do some holes so they're kind of at an angle, kind of do the same thing. It might be a little bit more complex as we try to, put holes in there. But if you've got any ideas for a top piece for this, let me know in the comments section down below. Alrighty, so there it is. Nice, I like it. I think this will work out well. Yeah, like I said, put some 3M tape on the bottom there, double-sided, and we would be good to go. Yeah. Nice. Alrighty, that's definitely worth a thumbs up. So we're going to go back to the desk, and so that way we can read some comments. I'm going around and trying to not knock everything over. And we are back. Okay, so we don't have any more comments. So anyway, yeah, that's what we got going on. So the version 2 I'm going to be working on, but today we're heading out to, later on today, we're heading out to Soraksan, which are it's a Korean mountain range up northeast. It's about 3 hours away. And then, we're going to spend a couple nights up there, Airbnb. Going to celebrate my birthday, turning the big 5'9", so that's going to be fun. George ends up saying, looks good. Yeah, I think it does. I think it worked out well. And so, with the little system that we end up getting there, that turned out pretty good. And we'll be able to find this on Creality Cloud. And we'll do the version 1, we'll do the version 2, and we'll check that out. Terry says, you could make one for your wife and use as a spice rack. Yeah. I would have to get I would have to get bigger cylinders for the containers instead. The things where the paint goes into those cylinders, those would have to be bigger, because I think the bottles that she has for spices is a little bit bigger than 60 milliliters. So George ends up saying happy birthday. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Yep, we're getting up there. 59, and then the next goal is going to be 62, because at 62 I can start drawing my Social Security, so that'll be an additional income stream. So that'll be nice. On top of the other stuff that we have. So, yeah, I mean, I could save it, but yeah. But the good thing is we hit another birthday, happy, healthy for the most part, and the wife is doing well. We're doing well. We've been together, 35 years now? Over 35 years. We're working on 35 plus years together, and it only seems like about 15. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It only seems like 15 years. I remember in the military, it ends up, I had been married like 10 years or something like that. And this guy ends up saying, one of the guys that worked for me, he had been married for like 2 years, newlyweds and the whole 9 yards. And he comes into work, and we were talking about marriage and all this stuff. And I said, yeah, it doesn't seem like, we've been married that long, and, only seems like a couple of years or whatever. And this guy comes in, and he goes, I've been married 2 years and it feels like forever. Damn it. It was like, wow. Yeah, you're going to have you need to work on some issues if you want that relationship to get better. So anyway, the rotating paint rack. Yeah, that maybe he should have made a rotating paint rack for his wife. Give her gifts and things like that. Whatever you do, don't give your wife a vacuum cleaner or a dust buster on her birthday. Don't. There's a story behind this. I know this doesn't have to do with 3D printing or my birthday or anything. I was young, which also corresponds with me being more stupid than I am right now. I had way less wisdom, and being newlyweds, we were stationed here in Korea, and of course my wife is Korean. It ends up we would go to the PX, which is kind of like a Walmart. It has a bunch of stuff in there. And it also has dustbusters, vacuums, and stuff like that. And so we didn't have much money. And it was like, okay, George says, or a treadmill. Yeah, you'd be sleeping on the couch forever. So anyway, it ends up that every time we go to the PX, to the store, my wife would see the dustbuster, and she's like, "Oh, that looks so good." And it was a dustbuster. It was a long, kind of smaller vacuum thing with the handle, kind of like a Dyson, but it was way before Dyson. And she kept saying, "Oh, how she loved it," and it would just make cleaning so much easier. And she loved it. She loved it. She loved it. So for her birthday, I got that. And apparently, the word love doesn't mean love when it's in the context of birthdays. That's a whole different category of things that she loves, which would be flowers and perfume and card and no appliances. That's not, you can love an appliance, but that love is not the lovely thing that she wants to see on her birthday. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So anyway, Terry pops up and says, "Have you set up a Social Security account yet?" I have access to my Social Security, where you can log in and do all that. So I've got that, and but I've got a couple of years before I can apply for that. So, but yes, I do have an account, and going to start drawing at 62, and we're just going to suck it dry for as long as possible. And that'll bring a few more nickels and dimes into the coffers, and with that, I'll be able to take probably half of that, or maybe a little bit less, maybe a third of that, and towards the hobby endeavors that I have. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed. So we got a few more years until we do that. But yeah, with the Social Security thing, is there something strange and unusual, something I don't know, which is highly probable because there's a lot of things that I don't know. So you can leave that in the comments. So anyway, if you're wondering where you can pick up going off the rabbit trail and back onto the main highway here of the paint rack model, you can find this on the Acrylic Cloud site that I have. And let me post that link. Get free models here. And boom, there you go. And we'll take a look at that right now. So with this is the Creality Cloud site, and there you can see we've got the rotating paint rack, the version 1. So we got that. We got a palette knife. We got some cosplay helmet screen. We got some other things there. We're working on 2 pages of stuff, and a little army painter paint rack, which is highly expensive. I didn't realize how expensive it was compared to the Artecho paints, but the Army Painter paints in the 17 milliliter bottles comes out to about $6.39 per ounce. Whereas compared to the Artecho, which is a really good paint, acrylic paint, fine particulates or whatever it is, the word escapes me. Whatever the paint is and how fine that is, it works out pretty good. But that comes out to something like, what was it, like 71 cents per ounce? Let me double check that. And it ends up 60 cents per fluid ounce for the tubes. And then for the other paints that are in the bottles, the 60 milliliter bottles, 59 milliliter bottles, those end up being 71 cents per ounce. And those are the metallic paints. Whereas compared to the Army Painter paints, again, it comes out to like over $6 an ounce, $6.30 some odd cents an ounce. So if you're doing cosplay items and painting stuff, don't use your Army Painter paints because that is expensive. Holy crow. Save that for your miniatures and your figures. If you're doing cosplay items like helmets, or let's say you wanted to paint something like that, stick with some spray can paints. Try to do the most that you can if you're doing stuff like cosplay masks or helmets. And I'm working on the helmet back there that you can end up seeing right there. Do the most of that with spray cans, and then that's why I ended up getting these Artecho paints. They're acrylic, they work great, got pigmentation. The pigmentation in those paints are really nice, and the colors are pretty good too. So yeah, definitely pick those up. They're worth it. And like I said, or I didn't say, but the 12 metallic paints come out to like $16.99. And then the 24 pack of paints came out to $28.99. So 60 cents per fluid ounce. And they had a 36 color. But I didn't get the 36. I got the 24, and it wasn't until later that I found out they have a 36. But those Artecho paints are pretty good. I really, really enjoy them. Let's see. So anyway, yeah, check the comment section. You'll see the free models where you can get all the stuff that I've made with Tinkercad on the Crowley Cloud site. Terry pops up and says, I just started Social Security back in August. Oh, congratulations. I got a couple more years that I can start drawing that stuff. So, and I think you can draw that, you can apply for that like 2 months before you start drawing or something like that, so you can get it, because it's going to take a little while to process. And can I sign up for Social Security? You can start as early as 62. Applying at 62 will result in a reduced benefit. Yeah. Apply for Social Security 2 months prior to 62, I think it was. Approximately 4 months before the month that you want your benefits to start, which would be around 2 months for you at 62. Okay. Provided you were 62 for the entire month, then you'd be eligible. Otherwise, you'd be, it talks about, it says if you were born on the first or second day of the month, you'll be eligible in the month of your 62nd birthday. Otherwise, you'll be eligible for the following month. So, okay. So a couple months before that, I can apply and get that ball rolling. So I've got a little way to go. Yeah, and so, yeah, Terry, 2 to 3 months. Seems like 2 months or whatever. It'd be specific because my birthday's later on in the month, so it would be the following month. So you back up 2 months from that. So October, September, so around September or something like that. So that would work out. Cool. All righty. Hopefully there'll be Social Security when I get there. Because that's supposed to be insolvent in like, what, 2034 or something like that? But we'll see how that goes. Yeah, it's funny how the government can fund everything, studying cow farts in South America and butterflies and all kinds of this crazy stuff, condom use in Senegal or Sri Lanka for, I don't know, some whatever group. We can spend millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars and stuff like that. But when it comes to Social Security, no, we're not going to help out our seniors, or like during this government shutdown, we're not going to pay our service members, people, the U.S. Military, we're not going to pay them because, they don't have any mortgages or rent or, I don't know, food. They don't have babies or kids that need, school supplies. Nah, we're just going to shut the government down. We're not going to pay them. As an independent, I think that has been asinine. And during my career in the military, it ended up, I think we went through 2 or 3 government shutdowns. Holy crow. And we didn't have, when I was in, because we walked to school, in a snowstorm, uphill, and then uphill back home both ways. Everything was harder for us back then. But during those government shutdowns, you better have money because they didn't have like this interest-free stuff that they had going on that they do now. So, but still, you shouldn't have to do that. Our military shouldn't have to do that. So, but anyway, don't get me started on that. Anyway, so back to our paint station that we have there. As you can see, it worked out pretty good. We're doing really well on that. We just need to do a little bit of fixing, a little top cap that we can put on there. So I'm going to get on and do that. And hopefully I'll be able to finish that up and maybe even print out that cap. But we're going to be leaving for our birthday trip to the mountains basically around 10 or 11 o'clock, about 11 o'clock. So I got some time. Terry's talking about Social Security and ends up saying they're going to reduce benefits in 2034. It's supposed to go down about 30%, which is insane. I totally don't get that. I mean, I know how Social Security works. The people that are working now are paying for the people that are on Social Security right now, that are drawing it. So I understand that. It started out way back when, and I think Ida Mae Fuller or something was the first recipient of Social Security. She paid in a number of months. So it's always going to be backwards. But we don't have a large enough population to pay, and we're running out of people and we're running out of money. But they could have just done, the easiest fix that they could have done is just say all imports anything coming into the United States from other countries, we're going to put a tax on it, and that'll fund Social Security, and boom. It would be funded forever. But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to reduce benefits and blah, blah, blah. Now you're getting me mad. Now you're getting me all riled up. Shame on you guys. Shame on you. Same thing. I mean, I think we should all have free health care. But my thing is, it just depends on who pays. Shouldn't tax the American taxpayer, have the other countries that send stuff into our country put a little bit of tax on that, and everybody gets health care paid for by the importing of goods and services into the United States. So yeah, there's no reason why there should be a shortfall or reduced benefits in Social Security. There's just some kind of corrupt politician dope deal going on, and it's sometimes. Well, I should say, a lot of times common sense doesn't rule. So, makes me sick. Anyway, George ends up popping up and he says the big problem is that it was used as a piggyback for decades and the government never paid it back. That's true. That's true. A bunch of corrupt people in government borrowed off of Social Security and never paid that back. And I think that was during the Reagan years, if I'm not mistaken. Terry Lay says, use tariff money. Absolutely. Absolutely. We are a huge consumer economy, and so taxing or putting a tariff to pay for Social Security and things like that, that would be the easy, boom, done deal. And we would never have to have a reduction in benefits. I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. But I did, does that include Social Security disability? I had somebody tell me that Social Security disability, that those will not be reduced. It's only the Social Security by itself. I don't know how true that is. So if you all know that, put that down in the comments, because that would be frustrating as well. Why do people who are disabled on Social Security get Social Security disability, not get a reduction in benefits, but people on regular Social Security get a reduction in benefits in 2034? So yeah, it just, y'all get me. In 2034 minus 2025, that's 9 years away. And minus 2, because I got to be 59, 60, 61, 62, so 3, I'm going to get 6 years of Social Security, and if they don't fix it, I'm going to get a reduction of 30%. Oh, joy. Yeah, and people wonder why they can't retire. Imagine that. Prices going up, housing, food, all of that, inflation, cost of living, utilities, car registration, property tax. The whole thing wasn't property tax. It was income tax. Income tax was instituted for World War One to get money for World War One. And supposedly after World War One, it was supposed to stop. Then the corrupt politicians never stopped it, and we've been paying income tax ever since. So prior to World War One, there was times in the United States history where we never paid income tax until World War One, and then once you get taxed, it never goes back. So, and then Terry says they tax your Social Security, then you have to pay Medicare premiums. I know. You made money, you got taxed, and they pulled out the money to go into Social Security, which is not even your money. You're paying the people that were on Social Security while you're working. And then now when you draw Social Security, you got to pay tax on that? Well, it's already been taxed once I got taxed. And so now you got to get taxed again? And then don't get me started. You guys are pissing me off. Get me all riled up. And then property tax. Here's another thing that bugs me is the property tax. It used to be way back in the day, if you built a house or bought a house and you paid it off, it was yours. It was done deal. It was like, that was the thing. You had the mortgage deed burning celebration thing, and the house was yours, and nobody could take it from you. And then they did property tax. And then it's like, well, could you imagine buying a car and you pay tax on it once? I understand that. You buy a house, you pay tax on buying the house. But then once the house is paid off, you got to pay property tax. That would be like buying a car, paying the taxes when you buy the car, and then after the car is paid off, you still have to pay tax. That makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know. George says, name one tax they put that they would voluntarily remove. Yeah, I know. It'll never happen. Terry says, I'm going to set up an appointment with a tax advisor to find a way around it. Good luck. That's a cool thing. One way around it, since we're talking about taxes, since we're getting off the topic of models and printing stuff, is that I don't pay any state tax, which is nice. Now, there's some states where you don't pay state tax, like Florida and a handful of other ones, but I came from Colorado. But when I moved overseas and my permanent residence is here in Korea, I don't pay state tax. I don't do a state tax return. And I even contacted the Colorado Department of Revenue and asked them, I said, hey, I'm going to be a permanent resident. I'm going to live in Korea. I'm going to retire over there. I'm not coming back to Colorado. Do I have to pay state taxes? And it took about 2-3 weeks to get an answer back. And they said, nope. It's just like if you move to another state, you're not responsible unless you're a resident of that state. So I was like, cool. And I checked with our tax professional over here in Korea, and they're like, yeah, no, you don't got to pay state tax because you don't reside, you're not a permanent resident of that state. Don't have a house, don't have anything there, boom. So yeah, we don't pay state tax. So I get a little bit on that. And then as far as taxation, I've got my military pension. I got some other stuff that is non-taxable, but yeah, it's very, very minimal. And there's no dual taxation over here between Korea and the United States. So if I get taxed on something in Korea, worst case scenario is that will be a tax credit on my federal tax return. So I'm not going to have to pay tax twice. But with my situation, boom, I make such a low amount that it's a no deal type of thing. And I don't know, is Social Security taxable? Do you know that, Terry? Yeah, Social Security taxable, probably. Portion of your benefits are subject to taxation varies on income level. Yeah, it shouldn't even be taxed. That is absolutely insane. Income matters, age doesn't. Combined income under 25,000 as single or 32,000 as a couple, benefits are not taxed. Combined income of 25 to 34 or 32 to 44 for a couple, up to 50% of the benefits can be taxed. And then combined 44,000 up to 85% of the benefits can be taxed. Oh man, that just pisses me off. George says, my fear is they'll find a way to tax prints because you don't make money off things that you make for personal use. Look out for digital ID. Digital ID, worldwide digital ID. Yes, it is. I'm not taking any out yet. Okay, cool. So, yeah. And the whole thing is Social Security at one time, back in the day, and I remember this, it wasn't taxed to begin with. But the previous administration, the guy who's president, Biden, he ended up voting that Social Security could be taxed, and it passed. And lo and behold, instead of taking care of seniors, we're going to tax them, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't really make sense because we have a fiat money system. You can create money out of thin air. It's no longer based on gold and silver or precious metals or anything tangible. It's just printed out of thin air. So why do you have to tax Social Security? Just if you want the money, just create it. Add it to the debt. We're trillions and trillions of dollars in debt anyway. Why do you have to tax people on Social Security? Hell, why do we have to tax citizens at all? There was times in the United States where we didn't even have federal income tax. So, the whole thing, you guys are getting me mad again. I don't know. So I get taxed on that stuff too. Some states tax Social Security. That's insane. I don't know. I'm starting to sound like my grandpa. You'd always get mad at the government. Oh, damn government. Oh, screw them. So anyway, that's what we got going on. So what we ended up doing is we talked about our little thing there, our paint rack thing that we had going on. And so we did that, and that turned out pretty good. Let's go ahead and make this little thing there. We did that. We did the proof of concept, printed out the first one, took some advice from George and added the paintbrush holders on there, and that works. I just need to adjust it so the paint brushes are more upright instead of kind of flaring out like a Christmas tree. That'll be the version 2. Like I said, we ended up seeing it there. It works. It rotates. Get a Lazy Susan. There's a link in that we took a look at. So we had that going on. Matter of fact, oh, that's not it. Where is it? That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. Where did my Lazy Susan go? Oh, there it is. So let me put that in the description box. Amazon Lazy Susan. Excuse me. So that'll be in the comments section down below. I just pasted that, and it's like $6.99, so that's not a big deal. Get some double-sided 3M tape, be able to put your rotating paint rack on there, and boom, you can save some space. I thought about doing another shelf type thing, but then, with 36 paints, I could do that, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And yeah, I thought the rotating paint rack thing would be kind of a cool project, and it actually is. So anyway, I think that's going to be it for the video. We saved all the world's, or at least the United States, tax problems with Social Security. We'll just add a tax on. We'll do some tariffs, and it'll never be shortfalled again. So we fixed that. Whether the politicians do that or not, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, thank you all for your 2 cents on that. And Terry, who's on Social Security, congratulations. Enjoy it as long as possible. I'm only going to be able to get it for like 6 years until they drop that, unless they fix something. That'll be very interesting to see. But until then, to get your mind off of that, you can go back to my Creality print page. And as we can see there, and we got a bunch of models that you can download for free. Everything is for free on there. And yeah, we're going to continue doing more stuff like that. And yeah, just kind of enjoy doing this stuff. Gives me something to do as I am retired. And it's pretty good. So, and since this has worked well, that definitely deserves a like on the video, in my opinion. So if you do that, I would appreciate that. Other than that, we're going to close this down and the obligatory outro. So we have the email address if you want to contact me. Pictures, just say hi, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be any specific reason. I answer all my emails, though I'm going to be gone for a couple days, so give me some slack on that. People over here have bought me coffee. You can do the same. Link is in the description box. But the very best thing that you can do is, again, like the video and subscribe to the channel. That would be the best thing that you could do. So with that being said, Terry, George, Ferrithus didn't show up today. Zombie Hunter didn't show up today. We got a couple other people that are watching, so don't know who you are, but welcome to the stream. We appreciate that. One alibi. Terry D says, why can you only get Social Security for 6 years? Because supposedly in 2034, when I turn 62, and then it'll be 2034, there'll be a 30% reduction in Social Security benefits unless they do something. So right now, that's the year of when the Social Security is supposed to drop 30% in the reduction of benefits. So by the time I hit 62, that is why I'll only have 6 years of Social Security, and then hopefully they'll fix it. So we'll see what happens. And then George says, have a good trip and enjoy. Yes, I will. Should be a good time with the wife and I. Celebrate the birthday up in the mountains with some freshly brewed beans and lattes. And the fall colors, the leaves and all that stuff. And we're gonna enjoy that for a couple days here in Korea. Do the Airbnb thing. So with that being said, yeah, everybody, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And we will see you all in the next video. Peace. Good stuff. Good stuff indeed.